So what we are studying today is a halacha of what we call in Hebrew Hashavat Aveidah, to give back to people the things they have lost. And it seems as a simple understanding that I find something that someone else is owning and I give it back to the owner. But just to go into the details, as we maybe have seen in previous weeks, there are many details, and as we do, not only discuss the laws of kosher, we also discuss the laws of property. And since this is written several times in the Torah, because of that, it's important for us also to discuss the detail of it, and it's also discussed a lot in Masechet Baba Metzia in the Talmud. So before we go to the sources in the Torah, maybe as a more general discussion about our attitude towards property, I want to start with a Mishnah from Avot. We're learning Avot on Wednesday, so we will probably come sometime to this Mishnah also, and we will discuss it more in details. But just as an opening, because we have spoken in the previous weeks about how important it is to deal honestly and what that means, and not to take to lend out our money to others and not take interest on it if it's not really business. Talking about that a little last week. And I think we can learn a lot about the frame of our attitude to property, and maybe also especially for us Hashavat Aveidah from this Mishnah. So I will share now. The text is a little big, I don't know why, but hope you could read it. Maybe big is good. Here. So we are in Pirkei Avot in chapter 5. Someone who could read, just raise your hand or anything. Mia, yes, thank you.
There are 4 types of character in human beings. One that says, mine is mine and yours is yours. This is a commonplace type, and some say this Sodom type of character. One that says, mine is yours and yours is mine, is an unlearned person. Haaretz. One that says, mine is yours and yours is mine, is a vicious person. One that says, mine is mine and yours is mine, is a wicked person.
Yeah, that's all. So there's 4 different possibilities of how we look in property. One says, mine is mine as yours is mine. Of course, that's clearly problematic. Everything is mine. One says, yours is yours and mine is mine. There is a discussion about that in the Mishnah. Some say it's like, okay, it's middle. You don't give from yours to other. Everyone is their own. But some say that is a Sodoma type of character, like very problematic, sometimes even more. Like, see, it's better that mine is yours and yours is mine, like we mix, than I'm saying I'm for myself and you for yourself. It's a discussion, okay? But of course, the main, and this could be discussed when we will, Be'ezrat Hashem, study this Mishnah to its details. But the important thing here is to say mine is yours and yours is yours. Okay, and that's a little okay. Then everything is yours. That doesn't give a meaning. But I think just stop sharing because it was just too. Having the opening, I can see you better. Thank you. Good. So I think the idea we could learn from this Mishnah, the opening, is that when we think, we say, everything is a property of Hashem. Everything we got is a property of Hashem. It could lead us to some problematic areas, because we could say, everything is a property of Hashem, and because of that, I'll give from mine for others. But then I could mix mine with others and thinking that everything is the property of Hashem, and as the same as he wants me to give my property to others now, he also wants other property to come to me in another occasion. Like everything is a kind of big kibbutz. Everyone owns everything. And it's very important for the Mishnah and for the Torah to say it's a mitzvah. We are obligated to look on our property as something that is not only meant for us, but it's in our hands. It's a gift from Hashem. And as we bless for the food and saying, we have eaten from your food, Hashem, then we also think this property that is in my hands today should also be here to lend for someone who is more needed than me, or to help a poor person, and not saying, oh, this is mine now, so I don't care about others. But in the second part of the same scale, it doesn't mean that when I could get my hands on other property, then okay, but now Hashem decided that his property is mine. That doesn't go either. And it's easier to think it, to understand that I shouldn't have others' property when I'm stealing. Because when I'm stealing, I'm going and taking from him in sometimes even aggressive way. I'm going and taking from his pocket, from his home. I don't pay for something that I need to pay for. That is stealing. Or even what we spoke about, having business in an honorable way, saying the truth in business and so on, that is, of course, also cheating. I think a very good example for me understanding that his property is not mine is when his property is lost. And I sometimes don't know who he is. I just find a property on the street. And here the Torah tells us, when you find a property that is not yours, you have to return it to the owners. And I think that's because sometimes, okay, now he lost it. It's on the street, so now it's no man's property. And now I go and take it to myself. I haven't stolen from anyone. And as we saw from the Mishnah, we should always see others' properties as there. And because of that, returning their property back to them is a very important mitzvah, showing the understanding of the balance in this. Any questions, comments? Okay, so let's go in, dive directly into three different sources from the Torah, where we can see this commandment about giving back the property. I will start not in the Torah's order, but in another order, because we just read about that yesterday. Yesterday we read about, in the Torah, we read about offerings. Offerings that are, according to what we read, some offerings are related to everyday offering, holiday offering, special occasion offering, special thank offering, but also offerings that are related to when we do something wrong, when we act with sin. And there is a list of things as example for sins that you could do. And it's interesting that this mitzvah that we're studying today is one of those who are listed. Mia, could you read again?
Yes.
Great, I'll use you today if it's okay.
It's okay. Hashem spoke to Moses saying, When a person sins and commits a trespass against Hashem by dealing deceitfully with another in matter of a deposit or a pledge, or through robbery, or by defrauding another, or by finding something lost and lying about it. If one swears falsely regarding any of the various things that someone may do and sin thereby.
Yeah, so here just to show, one of the examples is someone who has stolen, or someone who has found something lost, and they say, no, I didn't find it, okay? We can say that this is more clear because he didn't only find something lost, he's also lying about that he doesn't have it. So that's a very clear sin. But when we will go now over to the other sources from the Torah, we see how it's a mitzvah, not only to not lying about finding it, but actually returning it. And we jump over to this one sentence. This is from Exodus. Mia, you could continue.
Yes. When you encounter your enemy's ox or as wandering, you must take it back.
Okay. And here, the interesting thing is we often read your brothers. Here it says your enemies. Interesting enough. And here here's 3 sentences here.
If you see your fellow Israelites' ox or sheep gone astray, do not ignore it. You must take it back to your peer. If your fellow Israelite does not live near you, or you do not know who the owner is, you shall bring it home, and it shall remain with you until your peer claims it. Then you shall give it back. You shall do the same with that person's ass. You shall do the same with that person's garment. And so too shall you do with anything that your fellow Israelite loses and you find. You must not remain indifferent.
Okay. So these are the 2 last sources, are the main sources for what we call Hashavat Aveidah, returning the lost. And if anyone wants, very shortly, according to what we read, to say, what did we see in the Torah? How do we describe this mitzvah? Anyone who wants to just summarize what we have read? It was only a few sentences. What are we, according to what we see in the Torah, obligated to do before we go into details in this mitzvah? Yes, Daniel, thank you.
Yes, what's not ours, what belongs to another, regardless of who belongs to that person.
Okay, and what should we do because of that when we find it?
Give it back.
Give it back. And then it was if you don't know who owns it, or he lives far away, what do you do then?
I missed that.
Okay. Then it said you take it to your home, and you
wait
don't
until
use it. You take it to your home to take care of it until you could return it.
Yes.
Okay. So it's not only I could return it today, but even if I could only return it in 2 months from today, and they didn't have cell phones in old days, you could call, I have it here, come when you want. You have it in your home until the time is coming to you returning it to them. Okay, there was another detail that the Torah said, what you're not allowed to do. Yes.
There was also the differentiation between the Israelites and your enemy, I think.
Okay, in one hand it was, but we saw your enemy was one place and the Israelite fellow another place. But in both cases, it says you have to return it. So
return it, exactly.
Yeah. But there is a discussion about how far should we go? Who should we return it to? Is it only related to your fellow Israelites? I remind the discussion we had, or not discussion, the study we had last week about the interests. Or should you also return it to to others in another way, and there are different frames for that in halacha. But yeah, you're right there. There was one more, I think, very important detail in the way we understand it as halacha, and I think if not my words, but yes, Monica.
You're not allowed to lie about that you don't have it. You have to tell.
You have to tell. You're not allowed to lie about it. But now we went over from what you are obligated to do to what you're not allowed to do, and even more than that, what are you not allowed to do? We saw you're not allowed to lie about it. That's true. But even not only lying. Okay, let's see it in the words of Maimonides. He describes in Sefer HaMitzvot. Sefer HaMitzvot is one of the books from Maimonides where he describes the 613 mitzvot of the Torah. So let's see his words when he describes this mitzvah. Here. Mia, could you continue?
Yes.
Thank you.
That is that he commanded us to return a lost object to its owners. And that is his, may he be exalted, saying, you shall surely return it to your brother. And in the explanation, they said, returning a lost object is a positive commandment. They also said about a lost object, we found to learn that one's transgressions a positive and a negative commandment. Behold, we will explain the negative commandment in its place. And the laws of this commandment have already been explained in the second chapter of Bava Mitzvah.
Here is the details. But what did he say here? And I didn't jump over. We can jump over also to the negative. I could jump over there, just one moment. Negative 269. Let's read it in the negative also. Here. Continue here.
Yes. He prohibited us from ignoring a lost object. Rather, we must take it and return it to its owners. And that is his saying, you may not remain indifferent. And we have already explained blah, blah, blah. And then there's like, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a list. Here goes a little more into details about, but the most important thing we have seen, how does Maimonides, but not only Maimonides, he quotes the Talmud, understand this mitzvah? How many mitzvot do we have in the mitzvah of returning the lost? How many mitzvot are there here? We read two different. So it's not one of 613, there are two. And in one of them are in the positive mitzvot, what you are obligated to do. And the second is on the negative mitzvah, what we are prohibited and not allowed to do. And what are we not allowed to do? It's very similar to what we have now in Pesach, where we're not allowed to have chametz in our home, but we also need to take out the chametz from our home. So if we don't have chametz in our home and we go into Pesach and haven't done anything, then we have only fulfilled one mitzvah of not having chametz. But we need to actively to take out the chametz from the home. Here is the opposite. We normally think giving back the lost to the owner is a positive mitzvah, meaning when we see something and we're able to do, we do a good deed by finding the owner and feel well with ourselves that now we have done a very good thing and help someone who had lost something to get back their property. The Torah doesn't say that. The Torah says you're not allowed to ignore. Meaning, if we go on the street and we see a property and we don't return it, we have broken our law. And it's a totally different obligation. We see it also not totally the same, similar with most religions have the same sentence of what you want your next to do to you, you have to do to them. But in our version, where this is mentioned as the whole Torah in one sentence by Hillel, he says, what you don't want your next to do to you, you shouldn't do to them. And in the first thought, it seems more as a, okay, it's better to do good things that you want them to do to you than not doing bad things. But actually, when you go into details, and I think that is the important understanding of the mitzvot. The mitzvot is an obligation that is there all the time, in every detail. If I need not to do to my neighbor or to my next what I don't want them to do to me, I can't say now I did good things towards others. Because every step I have to do, it has to be not bad towards anyone. So I think it's a much bigger obligation. Same here, we see it very clear here. If I have given two lost every day to people, like every day I have found two things that are not mine and given it back to their owners. According to the Torah, it's not good enough if I have ignored a third one. Because if I have seen something and not returned, I have broken the rules of the Torah. It's an obligation that is all the time. All the time. Things that not mine, I have to give back to their owners. And now we can begin to think, okay, that could be very complicated. Because how many times could we see on the street or in other places things that are not ours, and people lose things all the time? And how detailed should that be? If someone lost their pen, should I try to find owners? And there are pens that are very cheap and there are pens that are very expensive. How should we find the owners? And maybe today it's easier. We could open a website saying, here's all the properties we find, take contact with us. In old days, they didn't have this opportunity. And the Torah, when it says that the law is a law, then we're obligated to it as same way as kosher and Shabbat and holidays and Yom Kippur, giving back the property. It's in the same level, sometimes even higher, because here it's a mitzvah towards Hashem, but also towards other human beings. So just to show how far it goes, I don't know, there is a very known story from the Talmud about Rabbi Hanina ben Dosa, about him finding some chickens, alive chickens outside, and he didn't know the owners. And according to what we saw in the Torah, what should you do? What do you do when you don't know the owners? Anyone can help me?
So you are supposed to keep it until the person comes and claims it.
Exactly. You need to keep it until, so he takes these chickens home. I don't know how good it's to have chickens in all days, because they're outside. And it took time. And these chickens, what happens in the time? They get eggs. And these eggs, they become even more chickens. So after a while, it doesn't have a couple of chickens. He has, I don't remember exactly the details, 20, 30 chickens. And it begins to become very bothersome for the family. So what he does, he sells the chickens and buys goats instead. Because that's easier, it doesn't make as much noise and so on. And after a year, someone comes and says, I've lost some chickens here a year ago or some years ago. And he gets some goats instead. And this is someone who takes it And it's important to say the details around that are discussed in the Talmud. We will go all to the old details. How much should we do? How much should we do to ensure to give back property? Because sometimes it could take a lot of time from our time. Sometimes we need to feed the animals. The Torah speaks to begin with about animals, and then also every other items, as we read. So sometimes it could be very bothersome. And of course, if we need to feed the animals, we don't need to pay money for this. So when we give back, he has to pay for the food we gave. It's a very complicated situation in many situations. So just to try to do a little order in the rules and speak today at least about the main rules, so that we will know today in our days how we should keep this mitzvah. In old days, things we didn't know where they were. We went up to Jerusalem 3 times a year. There was a place where we could take all the properties that are lost. Very practical way of giving back properties for people you don't know, and people know to come there, lost and found, as we have in every airport today and things like that. There was the lost and found of Jerusalem, where people could give back things that were lost. But it's not as easy as I said. Yes. Any questions before we go on? Things that you think, okay, this seems weird or good?
Well, I have a question.
Great.
So if I found something that belongs to someone else, like back in the time you find someone's ox, I think that was what they said in the sources. Would you be able or allowed to benefit from what you found until you return it back? Or can you not benefit from it because it's not yours?
A good question. You say, okay, I found a cow. Should I use the milk until the cow is given back? That's an example. Okay, good question. I will try to refer to that. Others? No. Okay. So, or use the jacket that I found or something like that until it comes back to their owner. So one of the main issues to ask ourselves when we find something lost is, what is the definition of this thing? Meaning the Talmud is discussing it with, we'll say, good, it's actually like logical, saying something that is with no value, you shouldn't give back. It says less than puta. Should be something that is worse. Piece of paper, okay? A piece of paper, should we give it back? If it's a piece of paper with something written on that maybe has a lot of meaning for the one, we can maybe try to find back the owner. But we shouldn't say, no, the Torah says everything someone lost, we should give back. So to begin with, thing that doesn't have any value or very, very little value, we shouldn't give back. And again, it's a question, what? A pen, that has a value. So if I lost my pen in the class, I will be happy that someone who found it give it back to me. But today you have pencils that cost, I don't know, half a krone. Is that inside or outside? And normally the measure should be, halachically the measure is, if I don't care for it, if it was mine, I don't need to give it back to others, okay? So if in my understanding, for me, if I'm not very special, I don't care about anything, but if I think that this is something I wouldn't have tried to find because it's so low of properties, so little expensive and so on, then I don't have to give it back. Many say you should try because maybe I'm less careful than others, but I don't have to. If we say the rule you're not allowed to ignore, there I am allowed to ignore to begin with. Yes, Elena?
What if you find money on the street?
What if you find money? Okay, so if you find 1 krone on the street, do you need to give it back or not? We could use that as an example, or 5,000 krones, okay? Do you need to give it back or not? I'll come, it's a good question, and actually a very good example to use. So if it's very little, it's worth very little, then we don't need to, okay? But then there are 2 more elements that are the main element discussed in halacha for giving back. The first is signs, meaning, is this something that has any signs on it? Meaning, if I find 5 krones on the street, if the one who wants it back would call me and did you find my money? Is there any possibility to show that it is his? If I lost, something that doesn't have any signs, a chocolate, okay? Everyone has that. It's the same one everyone has. I can't say it's my chocolate that I can prove it, okay? So the halacha says to give back property has to be given back with signs. It's not allowed enough that I say in the city, I found money in the streets, come everyone who needs it, someone comes to me, here's the money. No, it doesn't work like that. The one who lost has to give signs that are unique to this, not something that is normal, but unique. And when he has signs that are unique, then you give it back. Meaning that if this doesn't have any sign on it, then it's possible that we're not obligated to give it back, okay? I'll go back to it. It's a little complicated, but it's common sense. If there is no way of someone to prove that it's theirs, then, but coming back to money, if I found amount of money and there is exactly 7,550 krones, that is a sign. And they were in 1,000 and then 2,500, and they had binning together in red color. This is a very clear sign of what this property is as money. If it's only 50 krones lying somewhere, it's not a sign because everyone could lose 50 krones. Today we use cash much less than before, so it's not as common. But in old days, it was much more common. People lose money. It happened. Today it's everything in the phone, so it's easier not to lose. Yes, Daniel.
Can a particular time and place be a sign?
Could be, but it's a little question of where. So where it happened has a meaning, but normally it's not a sign alone. But so normally we try to find signs on the property itself or the loft itself. So signs is a very important part of it. And then there's another part that is connected to that. And that is what we call in Hebrew Yeush, okay? And that is the owner. Do we know that he gave up the hope to get his lost back? And of course, if I lost 5 million krones, I will probably to the end of my days hope that in one or another way that money will go back to me. But if I lost 50 krones, I will probably sometimes say lost is lost. Normally sooner than later. Okay, I try to find, I don't know, I'll ask, did anyone see 50 krones? I don't know where I put it. I'll maybe go back to the place where I think it could have been and look for it. Normally, even not that for 50 crowns, but it's individual. So for someone, 50 crowns is a lot. For others, 50 crowns is nothing. And there is and we don't know because we find a property that is not, but meaning that if something has, and it's connected to signs, because if things has a lot of signs on them, then the chance that someone will give up the hope of getting it back is much lower. If their name is on it with the phone number and address, the chance that someone will give it back to them is much bigger than if they know that it's something that is, how should they find me and who should bother on something that is so, with so low value. So when something has a low value and doesn't have any signs, people will normally give up the hope of getting it. So here again, if I find money that I know that people would have given up the hope of getting back, number one, and two, don't have any signs, then I'm one, not obligated to give it back to the owners. It doesn't have signs, I can't give it back. And two, maybe even allowed to take it to my own pocket. Okay, saying this is no man's money, now it's my money. But there is a discussion in the Gemara about that, and it's not so clear because how do I know that they actually gave up? Okay, and could the discussion is between Abaye and Rava in the Gemara? Could someone give up something without their knowledge? Okay, meaning I lost 50 crowns, and you, I won't say who of you, find it. Okay, now you say 50 crowns he gave up, and they take it to their own property, saying because it doesn't have signs, the one who owns it probably, no, for sure, will give up hope, and then I can take it to myself. But if I didn't pay attention yet, and I don't know that I lost it, that's the discussion in the Gemara, saying I still think that it's my money, because I didn't pay attention that it's not mine. And now you, someone else, use the money that is mine without me giving it up, because I don't know that I lost it. That's maybe stealing. Okay, so there's our discussion. I won't go into all the details, the discussions in the Gemara around how do we know. So for example, money was a bad example, because money, they say people always check their pocket. It's something we follow, like we follow our phone and we follow our pocket. This kind of things, we know every hour people check what they have, or probably, and because of that, the example I gave, 50 crowns people gave up, you are allowed to take it to your own property. Things you're not sure and could be longer time, you should maybe wait with using, because it's possible that the one who owns it will sometime give up the hope, but you don't know that they gave up the hope yet. And because of all of that, I would say it's normally very good to have a rule. It's not halacha, but a rule that is a little more than halacha, not to take into your own property something that you find. Give it to tzedakah after a while, okay? Do something like that, but don't, it's normally good not to take it to your own pockets when you find something. Yes, Helena?
What about objects that you think the owner will look for? That is not, like, for instance, you're at a library, right? And there's a notebook, but no name. And so you assume that the person will return to that place to find it, but you don't know. What about that sort of problem?
Good example. So you should do everything you can to return it back. That is something you don't know that the owner gave, because this notebook could have information that is very important, and they will try to find it back. here it's also important to difference between two situations. One, if it looks as if someone put it somewhere, okay, then sometimes it's wrong to take it, because the chance for them to find it where they lost it, it's much bigger than you taking it and putting it in a post in Facebook. Did anyone lose a notebook? And then have to come with the signs and everything. So it's very important to say that something lost doesn't mean everything we see standing. Now we take it and we try to find the. Sometimes it's correct to say the best thing here is to let it be where it is. Maybe come back to the same place 2 days later. If it's still there, then it's good to take it. Maybe to put a sign, I found something here. If anyone lost it, take contact with me. I have it, because then it's protecting this property. But it's correct what you say, that things that someone's lost that has a value, we should do as the Torah says, and that has signs on them. And of course, a notebook, for example, is a very clear sign. But most things have signs in the end. The way they're put together, the exact amount of money, some other signs. Most things have signs. If you find, as I said, chocolate that everyone has, that's impossible to find, to give signs for, because everyone has that kind of chocolate. And I don't know how far people will go to find their own, to get back their own chocolate, if they're not children that are especially happy in chocolate. But in that way, it's using common sense. It's using common sense about, is it correct for me to take it to my home? And today, in difference from old days, it's much easier to send out, to spread the knowledge about you finding something that has a value for someone. Okay, I don't think a pen would be something people will work a lot to find. Sometimes there are pens that are very special, either because they're made from gold and then they have a lot of value, but it could have a sign on it that is something emotional for someone. But even more important, someone lost their ring, their wedding ring. That has a lot of value for someone. It's small, it's hard to find. It's a big mitzvah if you find something to that. Try to find the owners and to give it back. And then sometimes it could take a lot of time, but if you post it in the Facebook or someone else, in the end, it's a good possibility that the one who lost it will try to search and find what you write. And then, of course, you shouldn't put a picture of it or a picture that shows all the signs of it, because the halakha says that the one who lost it has to give a sign. Someone could always say, okay, it's worth it, gold, it's mine. So if you put all the signs in the way you publish it, you could unfortunately give it to the wrong person, to someone who lies just to get property, as an example. So this is, as I said, the sign, and that people don't give up, or probably didn't give up the willing of getting it back. That's the two main issues here. Yes, Monica.
Well, at least in Norway, you could make this easy for yourself, because if you find something of great value, you take it to the police. And most people know that if it's something of great value, they go and ask the police. Then you don't have to keep it forever, hoping that somebody will look at your post on Facebook or whatever. Many people aren't on Facebook, so it's better. It's a better way, and then it's out of your. You don't have it anymore. So you're not keeping something that you shouldn't keep.
Yes, I agree. Many places have not only police kind of lost or found that are connected to transportation companies and so on, and people would try to search in the place where they lost. So if you find something in the bus and you take it to your home, you are doing something wrong, because the chance that they'll find it in your home is small. But if you give it to the driver, and then the driver has a place where they put it up, And in Norway, I don't know how it is in other Nordic countries, but you could even have a search on all the lost and founds together, where they post up things and you write the item, the date, and more or less the place, and it gives you a possibility. Was it found or not? And where could you find it? And all that is correct. But I have to say, in some situation, the halacha and the Norwegian law or culture is a little different. And by that, we could say that sometimes, there are not many cases, but in some cases, the halacha will say you have to find the owner, and Norwegian culture would say, so this is something we don't try to find the owner. Okay, and there could be a difference. Okay, so if you find, as I said, 50, 100 crowns, you give it to the police, they don't know what to do with it. Am I wrong?
No, if you find a small amount of money and you give it to the police will probably keep it for themselves.
Or
So
can
they
we keep
give
it?
it to the poor, some kind of zakat or something. No, it's more if you find something like a wedding ring or something and you have no clue who lost it. It's probably people who lost it. They will probably go to the police. But like when I walk the dog, quite often I find wallets. Probably somebody stole it, they take the money and they throw away the wallet. And I find this, and yeah, sometimes it's card and something that can have any value. And then I get in touch with the people who own it and they get it back.
Yeah, but then you don't have to go to the police, because sometimes you can find the name in Facebook and send them a message.
Yeah, so it's easy. You can always get in touch with them in any way and they can get it back.
Yeah, so what I try to say is the times have changed a little. The signs are different. People giving up the hope is different. Sometimes things that people would never give up the hope in old days, they will give up hope today because it's not as important. You could go into IKEA and buy another plate. And in old days, plates had a lot of value. I don't know how much people lose plates, but everything could happen. And in the opposite, today, it's much easier to find owners because the information is so easy. So that maybe things that in old days people would give up the hope because they said, what is the chance? Today, people still hope to get back. And because of that, I say, if you find if I find 200 crowns, maybe 100 crowns less, 200 crowns has a lot of value in the community house. Okay, I'm here now. I could send out a message to the members or to say, I found the amount of money. If anyone lost it, come to me. I won't say what. And then someone will say, okay, I actually had 200 crowns in my pocket. I don't know where it is. Oh, I just find it. I could give it back. That's a mitzvah from the Torah to do it. And it's a mitzvah from the Torah not to ignore it. And we could say, okay, now we have in societies good frames for giving back property. It's very good. It means that these values are strong in our societies. But still, I want to take it back to what we want to teach here. The Torah puts it on a high mitzvah from the Torah level to do what Monica said. You find something, you find the owner, give it back. Is it of very high value or lower value, not nothing value or almost nothing value? But as long as it has a value, you have to do everything we can. If not, we say, this is something, doesn't have any sign. The owner, they gave up the hope. Then, according to the Torah, we're not obligated to give it back to the owners. Maybe we shouldn't take it to ourselves, but we're not obligated to give it back to the owners. And as Torah says, and this is different, you take it and keeping it in our home, then we, in a way, and for the answer, the question there was, we could enjoy the benefit of it, but we shouldn't use it in a way that damage it in any way. And if we need to use money to protect it, I don't know, something that needs to have some kind of then we're allowed to ask for that money when we find the owners one day. So that's like a general, very general frames of this mitzvah. And as I started, we will conclude by this. seeing that even something that could look as minor as giving back property for someone, it's important to know that not only we do it because we try to be good persons, and we should do it also only because we want to be a good person, not only because I did because Hashem told me in the Torah I should do it. But in addition, the Torah tells us, so we even keep a mitzvah when we do that. And when we ignore that, even smaller properties, things that we can find the owners, then we actually break the rules of the Torah. And it's important to understand that. And by that understanding, what we started with, that we should see our property as a gift from Hashem, ownership of Hashem. And because of that, of course, it's in our property, meaning that we should do this for us, for our families first. But we shouldn't be close to give from ours and see, no, mine is mine and not yours. No, mine is also yours. When you have a need, I give it because it's actually not mine, it's of Hashem. But in the second side of the same scale, I will never say, but Hashem now put your property here and I need it more than you, then now it's mine. That is something we don't do. And because of that, it's so important to see even smaller things, properties that are not ours, as something we could do better by giving it back to their owners. And that's the main, I think, idea of Hashavat Aveidah that we learned today. Next week, we are going to study about salary. And I don't know how many of us have employers that are under them, and we need to pay salaries for. I hope we're all very rich and have big companies and pay salaries to 500 employers, but it's normally not like that. But still, I think that the rule is important, and we have to understand that salary is not only salary that we pay with a payment sheet. It's also when someone does a little work for us. When do we pay for the work they give? Paying on time and things like that. And understanding the value of that according to another rule that is already written in the Torah that we will discuss next week. So I thank you all for participating. Rav Moshe David, if you want to add something before we go.
Yeah, shalom to everyone. I'm just stepping in last minute. I hope you, and I'm sure you had a wonderful shiur with Rav Joav. I'd like to ask, you received an email about a seminar that it will take place in Copenhagen. I hope you've read the email. Unfortunately, we haven't had many reactions to it, and I really would like to ask you to respond to the survey. Even if you cannot come, please do so. It's very important for us to be able to organize the seminar properly, to know how many are coming. So if you're not able to make it, let us know. But I will also like to let everyone here know that it's a part of the program of this shiur, and it's very important for us that we have an opportunity to be there physically with each other and not only in our pajamas with our coffee in hand on Sunday morning. It's also a fantastic time for learning for you. It includes both Shabbat and Sunday in Copenhagen. If you have not received it, it's an email. So the email comes from info@scandin.org or from the Shlichot in Oslo. It was forwarded from info to the Shlichot to you. So if you have not received it, then do so. You can send. First of all, you should be receiving this information. So if you're not receiving this type of information, let us know at this email address. And Efrat has just added the text, so you have the survey here in front of you. The Shabbat will take place between May 5th and May 7th. There is an option to come only on Sunday, but it'll be a shorter program on Sunday, connected to the program on Shabbat. For those who are not able to come for Shabbat as well, we're also looking into if there's people in Copenhagen who can help us with accommodation as well. So it's very important that that you answer. I hope in the immediately you can do this in the next 24 hours so that we can have all of get the planning going with Pesach and everything coming up. It's been quite stressful. So the least we can ask is for you to please fill this out.
Yes,
Thank
I would
you.
just want to add how important it is, because we're enjoying the technology of being able to meet every Sunday morning and study and discuss together, but it's not the same as meeting. And if we could make this gathering being not only Zoom, but also physical, then the Zoom meeting will be something else. After we meet each other physically a couple of times, then the connection between us as rabbis and the students, but also the participants between yourself is totally different. We can't gather every week, but because of that, we really think it's good to prioritize as you do every week, and it's very nice to prioritize also to try to come to these gatherings. But a great teaching in itself, you get a whole weekend of study, and we think without that, this gathering is lacking a very important part. So we really try to prioritize to participate in it, and to begin with to answer for the survey. So thank you, Moshe David, for reminding us this.
Okay, thank you.
okay.
Shabbat Tov. B'atzlacha to everyone with your
Thank you.
Pesach preparations.
Shabbat tov.
להתראות.
Shavua Tov.
What,
Shabbat tov.
What
Bye bye.